Today we are meet Mr. Roberts, and we are asked a very interesting questions. It's what is the life of the inmate life in USA? So, Mr. Roberts, how are you?
I am fine. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, because I have a couple of interviews with you, right? Mm-hmm. And then a lot of our customers and our audience want to know, mm-hmm. They want to compare the U.S. inmate life, especially how they can deal the sex as an inmate life. Mm-hmm. Can you tell some story or the background or about you or what are your experience?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Joe, for giving me that opportunity, and welcome to each of you, and welcome to Overseas Chinese Live streaming. Yeah, very interesting topic. I guess first and foremost, I would say, don't go there. What is an inmate? An inmate is a person that has committed a crime and he or she is removed from society. Oftentimes people say, well, what is that life like? I can tell you it's different depending on where you're at. But here in the United States, it starts with city, county, state, then fed. City, you can end up in city lockup or county lockup for failure to appear. Meaning that, I don't know, in China, perhaps maybe if you drink and drive, it's against the law for you to operate a motor vehicle under the influence. It doesn't matter whether it's alcohol or drugs. If you get pulled over by law enforcement, for whatever reason, they're going to get out, they're going to come up to your vehicle, they're going to have their hand on their weapon, and they're going to ask you for license and registration. Upon that connection, they're going to be looking for things inside the vehicle, looking to see if you are under any influence whatsoever. If they deem probable cause, then they're going to remove you or ask you to remove yourself from the vehicle. And they're going to take you to the rear of the car. And they're going to ask you to do a breathalyzer. If you refuse the breathalyzer, they're automatically going to arrest you. Automatically. Then they'll take you down to the station. They'll ask you one more time. You can refuse. That's your right. But what they'll do is they'll get a court order. And if they get a court order, they're going to take a blood test from you. The blood test will reveal any narcotic or alcohol in your system. And if they determine that's the case, you will be arrested and you will be placed in the lockup, which will make you incarcerated as an inmate until you go before the judge. Those cases, in most cases, unless there's a manslaughter charge attached to the stop, you got stopped, someone got killed in the act of you driving, that's called manslaughter. You're responsible because you were driving a vehicle. And if you were driving the vehicle under the influence, that's punishable. You're going to be looking at now state time, state penitentiary. There's 50 states in the United States. Every state has a penitentiary or two. And also you have the federal government. The federal government works like this. You got the Department of Justice and the Department of Defense. Particularly in USP Leavenworth, Kansas, you have a building that looks very much like our State House, Capitol building, except it's all red brick. On the right side of the building is the Department of Justice. What does that mean? That's anybody that has a felony in the United States that's an American citizen. You can end up in the Fed, that's what we call it. If you're in the military and you commit a crime in the military, that's the Department of Defense. And you go to that same location So one side of the penitentiary houses Department of Justice, everything that deals with a felony, or you're a military individual that got in trouble in the military and it deemed you penitentiary time. Murder, defying an order, court-martial, all of this will land you in the Department of Defense lockup. The question was posed to me on either level. City, you don't have to worry about it too much. You're probably not going to be doing a lot of time. County, the most that you'll ever do is up to a year. How do they deal with sexuality in these circumstances, being away from their girlfriends in most cases, baby mama drama? Those that are married, while you're in the county, in the city, you may not be able to get what we refer to as a sabbatical or conjugal visit. Conjugal means that you're married, both you and your wife. It could be your wife that's incarcerated, or it could be you that's incarcerated. You get an opportunity when you get a visit. You're allowed to visit unless you get in trouble while you're incarcerated. Then you would lose that privilege. Any privileges or that you had prior to being convicted, most of your rights are now non-void. You are the property of the Bureau of Prisons, you're the property of the state prison, or you're the property of the county jail until such time you deal with the court issues that you face. Once you get resolved, either you get time served, or you get a fine and time served, or you get a fine and you go to state lockup. Anything over a year gets you to the state lockup. Some of these county jails, you want to do a year and a day so you can go to the state lockup. Why? It's going to give you more freedom. When you get there, again, as I mentioned, if you're married, you have a right to visitation of your family. You also have a right for conjugal visit, meaning that they have trailers on the penitentiary grounds that don't have cameras on the internal part of the actual trailer itself, but there's cameras all around those trailers for security reasons. But you're allowed, because you're married, to do just about whatever you want to do in that trailer during that visit. And the only way you get that type of a visit is you have to be married. So those of you that are already married when your commission of crime was done, you have that privilege because you are legally married. They do not, hear my lips, they do not provide conjugal visits for people that aren't married. Doesn't matter if you have a baby mama out there. That's not allowed unless you and that baby mama's get married, and they can arrange that for you. You can have a pastor come in and, get the licensing done, have somebody pick up the license registration from the courthouse, fill out all the information, have that pastor bring it in with them, and he will marry you and sign off on that marriage license. Then, once that's done, you can set up a conjugal visit. Okay, most people say, well, okay, if I'm not married and I'm not planning on getting married, what do I do with my sexuality? Well, if you're strong, you maintain your manhood. If you're not strong, you're going to become somebody's bitch, basically. And if that doesn't happen, you're going to have to find a magazine or find somebody in there with a magazine that's not been confiscated, because they confiscate that type of material, just so that you know that. In the United States, that's what happens. And basically, you have to masturbate. It doesn't matter whether you're a male or a female. Females masturbate too, okay? Or they get turned out. Just like the men get turned out, the ladies get turned out, okay? And then, you can just about imagine, they both have the same organ, so you can just about imagine what goes on, okay? So that's your options. So with that thought in mind, these are things that most people don't think about when they go out and do something stupid. It's the last thing they think about until you're incarcerated. Then you're in lockup and you're not with your loved ones. And some of you that aren't married, whew, that's when the drama starts, because now you're trying to control a woman while you're incarcerated. But you forgot one key component. If it's your baby's mama or your wife's, they're going through it too. The decision you made everybody have to deal with this scenario. That's why, sometimes under the influence, we don't always think like we should. Because if we thought about what we're doing not under the influence, we probably wouldn't do it. But everybody sometimes gets a little liquid Kool-Aid, man up or woman up, and then they think they're all of that and some, and they get a reality check. If you do not conform to what you find yourself in, then you will be visiting the SHU. What is the SHU? That's 23-hour lockup out of the community, general population. You're by yourself. You're locked up in a room 23 hours a day, except for meals, and they let you out for 1 hour. Many guys and ladies have to do that because by the time they get up to those penitentiaries, if you've snitched on some people and done some stuff that you think you got away with when you were out there, guess what? They're going to be there. And guess what? The guards don't care. They set you out. And if you've had an inappropriate relationship, oftentimes, guys, I know we run into these 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds that look like they're 24, but they're not legal. They call that molestation. If they're not 18, they're not an adult. So they may look like you think that they are because, these women can look awful spectacular, when they put that makeup on and so forth and so on, so you don't really know. So if you find yourself in that situation, not a good situation to be in because you will never want to come out of the SHU. Because if you come into general population, you may be one of those people that they find. How you identify them is sewn pockets close together. Let me say that one more time. Sewn pockets, sewn close together, identifies them as being either turned out, that's rape. You're in there for rape. So they feel it's justified. Because what they don't do is share the fine print that she was 17. Most people say child molestation. They're thinking about an actual, on paper, it's still a child. But it's not always a 4 or 5 year old. When you say child, what do you define a child as? All the way up to legal age. Now, there's no way to know that when they put that out there. But when they put that out there, somebody's going to think, okay, you raped a child, we're going to rape you. And if you're not man enough to protect yourself, you're overwhelmed. In most cases, when they come at you like that, there's several of them. When they go to take you out and hit you with a shift, what's a shift? Any pointed object that they can walk up to you and stab you multiple times. By the time the guards get there, you're going to bleed out. Basically what it is, folks. It's not a nice place. It's not a place that I advocate that you end up being there. And I've been there. I've been places that most of you don't ever want to experience. But if I can offer any hope, I am a man, very prepared to protect myself. And many times I had to do that, okay? Because it's called only the strong survive in an environment like that. So you don't want to end up in an environment like that. I don't know how it may be in your country, but in different countries, the way that they're structured, it could be pretty much dungeonous type for certain countries. I've heard some horror stories. There's a little bit of, you don't ever want to have your freedom taken because you have no control over what goes on with your life. Someone else does. But it's a very dark place. I don't care what country it is in. You're taken away from loved ones. The loved ones have to come and visit you if they allow it. And if you're married, I don't know about China, but here you do get conjugal visits. I can only assume, I don't know, I don't want to find out. But this is the reality of being incarcerated in the United States of America. Okay? It's not a safe place. Outside of that, let's touch on daily life as an inmate. Everybody does a program. What's a program? Anything that gets you off of the block or the tier. Numbers have proven if you're idle in your cell all day long doing nothing, more than likely you're going to end up doing something that you shouldn't be doing or encountering and getting with people that are doing other things. And eventually you're going to get caught. This is why they call programs. What's a program? Learning how to play a guitar. Learning how to play a game, chess. These are activities that are outside of your cell and outside of your block, so you're away from your cell. Tidbit, if you do not have your high school diploma, you have to go to school. That's a program. They feel like if they can educate you and give you some skill sets, recidivism is lower. Recidivism is lower, meaning that less likely for you to come back to the penitentiary. Because if you don't have a program, you're not working towards something to better yourself, and that's what they hope. Because most of the guys in there get out early release if they don't commit crimes while incarcerated. If you get in there and you get hooked up with the wrong people, you end up killing someone or breaking the rules inside, then you're going to be in the shoe for a while. And it could add more time on the time you're already spending. And when you're done spending the time, when you come out, you're still not done. You're on probation. And probation is a setup. It's set up for you to get violated. You have a probation officer. You have to have a job. You have to be a law-abiding citizen. And you have to pay restitution. Because you have to pay all of the court costs, any other costs related to your crime, restitution to the individuals, if life was taken, whatever. They're going to put it in writing. Now, whether you're going to be able to accomplish that when you get out is something else, but it doesn't matter. You're still going to be obligated. So if you ever decide to be responsible again and go out there, it's going to follow you. It's all about choices. Not a place you want to go, but hopefully that answers your question in regards to how do I deal with normalcy of life in a marriage. It's going to be totally different when you get incarcerated. But they do have empathy of knowing the need of a husband and a wife, and they will provide it on their terms in their location, and your wife or your husband will be cavity searched. When you get incarcerated and you end up at your home port, cavity search, strip down, pull up your balls, somebody looking up your asshole, making sure you're not bringing any contraband in. Then they give you t-shirts and boxer shorts and khakis and boots. Now you're officially, then you get a label with your inmate number on it and your name. So some of you watch TV shows. Some of it is accurate, and I'm here today because I've actually gone through all of this, guys. So you're getting this firsthand from me. So again, in the comment section of this Overseas Chinese live streaming program, you can write your comments and questions, and I will get back to you and answer any question that you still may have. But remember, you're in China. It's a democracy here in the United States. In China, it's a communist country. So it's probably going to be a little bit harder for you in a Chinese penitentiary. So I don't suggest that you go there. Is it balanced? Somewhat. Things may be similar, but in a communist country, you don't even have rights as a citizen before you're incarcerated. So think about that. So it's only going to be more extreme for you. And not only just your country, there's other countries. Russia, we're seeing it live hand right now. Ukraine, we're seeing it live right now. Okay? It's not a place that you want to end up, but if it can give you any console, not saying that I'm expecting you to go out and end up having your freedom taken. But what I'm saying is if you're a strong individual and accept responsibility for your actions, because you have to. If you made the choice, you have to man up or woman up and deal with the situation. And guess what, folks? Not only you have to, you put this all on your family too. Your children, your significant other. And then you want to control her. I don't know about in China, but in the United States, we have a lot of these young people of color that are trying to control their babies, mamas, or wives, if they have them, from inside of the prison. I told several young men that ended up getting mad. We only have so many payphones for collect calls. And when you break one, the penitentiary punishes us all. So you end up not being very popular. You might have to watch your back after we all get unlocked, because we all will get locked up because of it. And nobody will be able to communicate with their loved ones for at least 3 weeks, or for at least the weekend, depending on how long they want to punish us. It could be 3 days, it could be 10 days, it could be a month, depending on the severity of it. If there's fights on the yard, you get one warning, live ammunition. The next ones are going to be pointed at the individuals out there fighting. And that means somebody's going to be in a casket delivered to their family because of testosterone. So testosterone has to be released, you know, especially when it's all men, same with women, but more so with men, you know. So it's an experience that one can overcome, because I have overcome it. But I'm a man of faith. I don't speak it, I live it. I give them first-hand experience of a man of faith. Always got my sword. What is my sword? My Bible. They nicknamed me Preacher. It was the nickname that the inmates gave me, because I walked the track with skinheads, Aryan Nation, Hispanic, African American, Europeans, and I would walk with anyone. And people wanted to walk with me. They said, "What's going on, preacher, out here walking this track? You know, tell me a good word, preacher. What's going on?" I said, "Well, what's going on with you, man?" You know, they'll tell me oftentimes what's going on with them, and I said, "Well, let's pray about it." And I would not say, "I'm going to pray for you." I say, "Let's pray about it now." All these strong, macho men watch me. I always had Bible studies going on. They walk by my gate doors open. "What's going on, preacher? I know you're in there reading that good book. Got a minute?" I said, "Sure, young man, come on in here." You know, you got to understand that most of these young men, all they did all day was pump iron. They were swollen up. Maybe not too bright up here, but still growing, okay? A lot of them were very young, you know, just angry. And they were comfortable talking to me because they knew that I was a man of faith, and I passed no judgment. I didn't have any bias. I was an open book for anyone. It didn't matter what color they were, what country they originated from, what they had done. I met some extraordinary, humble men while I was in this situation. And they would tell me their stories, and they had so much joy in the penitentiary. I self-surrendered. People said, "I never met anybody, preacher, that's so happy to self-surrender." I said, "Because I'm trying to get this stuff behind me." But I met these humble men, and they laughed at me. I said, "You know what? God will bless you, man. Don't worry about it. I'll pray for you." And they just smiled at me. And they said, "Preacher, go stand in the corner." Go stand in the corner? What are you talking about? "Preacher, I'm a lifer. You're a short timer. I had never in my entire life been so humbled by men in my life. These men knew that they were not going to see daylight outside of these walls. They'd come to peace with the choices that they made that made them be in that situation. Not only just them, their families. They got children. They got wives. They got girlfriends. But they're not leaving here until they expire. I've never met such humble men in my entire life. Many of them I still write, and they write me, and I write them back because I knew the importance. What was the money in prison? In the United States, it's called the forever stamp. Well, Mr. Roberts, what is a forever stamp? That's what it means. It's forever. They buy a roll of U.S. postal stamps, and it actually says forever stamp on it, meaning that you can use that stamp whenever, forever. But you had to watch one thing. Deals were done with forever stamps. Lifers made deals with the, we call them turnkeys, the guards. They would tell these guards, if you bring in, because the only person that can bring these types of stuff that were contraband into the prison were guards. But if you found the right guard and he was hungry enough, these lifers, they would have so much money deposited into any bank account of their choice. And they would bring cartons of cigarettes, which is contraband. They don't even sell it in the commissary. Black tar heroin, marijuana, any kind of drugs that you can get on the streets got there if you knew the right people. So many times I had an opportunity at USP Leavenworth to see them bring in a black warden, a black assistant warden, and I would sit up many nights on my tier and I'd see people get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and it's dark and they'd be sitting at metal picnic benches and they're taking notes. These were people that looked like me, working for the black warden and the assistant warden, and their whole perspective is to catch bad guards. Because they knew that's the only way this stuff could be getting in there. And they had enough information that when they approached these guards, even if they were head cooks, they said to them, you have 2 choices. Resign today, and we will walk you off the property. Not resign, we will take you to court, and you will become an inmate. And the only reason they were able to do that because they had enough intel, information, notes, conversations from undercover inmates that were actually federal marshals. So when you put a black person in the midst of black people, you make the assumption that they're an inmate. Many times people get locked up and they get locked up with somebody in the cell. Sometimes they stick people in the cell, and what naturally happens? You're angry, you're in there, your freedom's been taken, and this person, acts like he's your friend. And pretty soon, because you're so angry, you figure he's just like you're telling him your story. And what he's doing with your story is he's documenting it. Then he sends it to the warden, assistant warden, and then when you go to trial and you try to defend yourself, all of a sudden they have a special witness. And it's that marshal that you thought was an inmate who got all that information on you. And now you're convicted because you sung to the wrong bird. This birdie worked for the government. This happens all the time, people. Short and sweet, you do not want to mess with the Bureau of Prisons of the United States. They can lose you. They can move you from one institution to the next institution, and they'll never find you. And they'll make your life miserable if you're one of those tough guys. They're in the business of breaking you down. And they will break you down because you can't win. unless you follow the system. You got in the system, you got to follow the system to get out of the system. Many people kick and scream, think that because they become psychotic and crazy and emotional, that that's going to change the situation. They got a place for you. It's called solitary confinement. And you can be in solitary confinement until you conform to the rules. And they'll know the difference. When you start being nicer when they come to the cell to feed you, and you start showing some respect, then they might think about bringing you out of solitary confinement. But if you have these jackets, you're probably safer to stay right where you are. The people that are in general population don't have anybody that they have to look over their shoulders with. Only issue they may have is while they're incarcerated with somebody, because you sat at a table in the cafeteria that belongs to someone else. That happened to me, folks. I sat down and some young kid walked up to me and said to me, "Where's your car?" And of course, you can imagine, I looked at this person, well, what do you mean, where was my car? I had no idea what this guy was talking about. "Who's your people?" he said. "What do you mean, who's my people?" Basically, I got an education on when you're in those type of settings, they promote segregation. It was a shell shock to me. What he meant was, where were you born? Where did you fall from? I said, well, I came here from Seattle. We'll get you with your people. But I was born in Kansas City, Missouri. Well, then get with your people. Basically, what he was telling me, that was my car. If I came from Seattle, find the people from Seattle and where they're sitting in the cafeteria. If I'm claiming to be from Kansas City, Missouri, I need to find inmates from Kansas City, Missouri. Now that's my car. What does that promote? Gangs. That's what happened in the ghetto when you didn't have a functionable father and mother, and you were afraid as a teenager. You went to gangs. Because what did gangs supply you? Protection. Are you a Crip? Are you a Blood? Or whatever you called your gangs, wherever you grew up. Gangs can be 2 blocks this way, you're on their turf. 2 blocks that way, you're on somebody else's turf. What happens? They protect their turf. The same way in the joint. I don't know how China is, but I know in the United States, they promote segregation. So they want Hispanics with Hispanics. They want Europeans with Europeans. They want black people with black people. They want Hispanic with Hispanics. They don't want to promote unity, because if they promote unity, the unity can overcome the institution. So fear, people. They keep people living in fear. Look up governance. Look up the definition of what governance means. Every nation is governed by a political party or dictator or whatever the case may be. That's what I mean. So to break it down, okay? You know, everybody wants to come to America, but America is not as kind as most people think unless you're an immigrant. But you know what? America consists of immigrants. That's America. Plain and simple. Everybody comes, Koreans, World War II, World War I, Japan, Japanese that lived in the United States of America, Koreans that live in the United States of America, Chinese, if we were at war with China that live in America, guess what they're going to do? The first thing they're going to do is go around and round up all of these people that are immigrants from other countries that we have conflict with. And they're going to put you in concentration camps. You did hear about the story about the Jews and what Nazi and Hitler did to them. Isn't it amazing you can be born in the United States, but if we go against war against a country that you belong to, you're the first one locked up. There goes your American citizenship, not necessarily thrown out the window, but they're going to confine you until they prove to themselves that you're not a double agent. There's sleepers here, especially India and other places. Russians that a certain tone or phone call in the house, now they didn't come all the way over here and assimilated themselves to American living. They live in the suburbs. They go to some of the best schools. But a certain hypnotic snap, tone, sets them back into the mode of what they were sent here originally to do in the first place. Most of them take out the sale. All of a sudden, once that's done, no emotion. They come back home and resume their lives like nothing ever happened. You know what I mean? But when they need them, they've been under hypnosis and certain, this is called the end of the Cold War. The new Cold War is the internet. That's the new Cold War. Hackers trying to all the time get what? Information. That's the new Cold War. So, with that said, I'm going to say if you have any other additional questions, I want you to leave it in the comment section of Overseas Chinese Live Stream and your contact information. And I will be more than happy to reach out to you and answer any additional questions. This is a huge topic, so there's a lot to cover. And there may be other questions that you may have, but we don't have the time in this one setting to cover all that. So again, please smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and you're in. Click any bell you want. If you want to click the one for all notifications, you will not miss a notification. Thank you again for your time, and have a wonderful morning.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
嘉宾和主持人的观点并不代表海外华人直播的立场。拜拜。